I'm sure as you look back on your life, you might be able to point to one or maybe a couple of different times or like an event that really kind of changed things for you. Do you have anything in your mind that you can think of? Like an event, like somebody said something to you, something happened and you're like, whoa. Like I was heading this direction, now it just kind of turned me to a different direction. It happened to me in high school, and I didn't even realize had the impact until like now, like the last couple of years. I was in high school. I didn't look like this. I was kind of an angry kid. I had a chip on my shoulder. I really felt like it was me against the world, and lots of hatred, lots of anger. But I wasn't really a troublemaker. I wasn't the kid who was pulling the fire alarm or doing anything else. My strategy was fly under the radar. You know what I mean? Like I'll just kind of smolder under the surface and be angry. But then one day, I'll never forget, it was in gym class. And again, I'm not a great basketball player. The Sixers weren't calling me to try to recruit me or anything. But I could play. Like if the ball got to me, I could probably make a shot. But the entire game, like in gym, no, like I'm wide open. I'm like, hey, throw the ball to me, right? I can make the shot. And nothing. So I just had it, right? So I got a hold of the ball, and I chucked it as hard as I could from one side of the gym to the other. And I'll be real honest with you, I did not know that there was another gym teacher on the other side in the general direction of where I threw it. Now, I've never been more thankful for anything in my life for having bad aim. I wasn't aiming for her. I did not hit her, but the principal didn't care, right? So I got marched to the principal's office. But the next day, something really interesting happened. One of the other gym teachers who saw everything, he calls me in his office, and I can remember it like it happened yesterday. Sat me down, and he knew my two sisters who had come before me, who had a great reputation. They were very dutiful students, and here I was, the kind of long-haired, crazy punk kid. And he looks at me, and he's like, Hoove. He's like, what are you doing? Like, he was puzzled. Like, what are you doing? Like, you've never been in trouble before, and now you're throwing basketballs at your gym teacher? And then he asked me a question that I don't even know if he knew how it would affect me. He said, is that who you want to be? He basically said, you got to make a choice, buddy. Because like if you're going to do this kind of thing, like that's not a good road to go down. And so far, right, you're not perfect, but you're staying out of detention, right? You're staying out of the principal's office. But if you keep doing this kind of stuff, it's going to escalate. And he kind of knew where it would go. He'd probably seen it 100 times. Now, there was no talk of God. He didn't, lead me to Jesus or anything. But as I'm reading Paul talking today, and really throughout this entire book of Ephesians that we've been going through, I don't know if you've noticed something, but Paul's having a lot of conversations with us, isn't he? He's calling us into his office. He's like, hey, a little something in your life that's going. Like there's been so many spots in your life where you could go down this road or that road. You could go towards Team Jesus or Team Satan. And all along, Paul keeps asking us, well, which is it going to be? Which is it going to be? Now, you could have those big life-altering, kind of crossroads, forks in the road, but you have those every day, don't you? The choice between whether you're going to listen to that gossip, listen to that trash talk that somebody's saying about someone else, and it might be someone you don't know. It might be a celebrity. Oh, did you hear what so-and-so did? It's all over the news. See, and you have a choice at that moment, don't you? It doesn't sound like it's monumental, but you're a child of God, right? You're loved by Jesus. So which way are you going to go? Are you going to go into the devil's office and hear what he's got to say, or are you going to go into where Jesus is and talk to him? Let's look at Ephesians chapter, we're in 5 today. And we left off last week, I think, with some powerful stuff. Because the gym teacher was saying, look, how do you want to be? Like, how do you want to act? But God has a different thing, doesn't he? He's got something far bigger. Far bigger than avoiding the principal's office, far bigger than avoiding detention or suspension, far bigger than avoiding getting kicked out of school even. Paul's like who do you want to be? And that's going to again, express itself in how you live. But who are you going to be? What's your identity? And it's not just as a good kid, right? It's not just as a nice guy. Last week, we learned that we are God's beloved children, and Paul says, be imitators. Did you hear that last week? Be imitators of God. Are we a chip off his block or another one? So he called us, and we've heard this word walk over and over and over again. Walk in love as Christ loved you, gave himself up for you as a fragrant offering and sacrifice. So there's going to be things he's going to talk about in here that he does not want us to be, that are just not part of our life. They don't fit. So when you pick it up in verse 6, and we'll go back to the verses before this, but he says this. He says, let no one deceive you with empty words. For because of these things, the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. So what are these things he's talking about? Well, it's some of the stuff that the readings kind of skipped over, but I want to bring them up. And it's not a happy, fun list, is it? I'll just give you a couple of them. In verse 3, it's sexual immorality, impurity, covetousness. He goes, that shouldn't even be named among you. And he says, no filthiness, no foolish talk, no crude joking, right? No bathroom humor, folks. No kind of jokes about a girl or about a guy. He goes, those are out of place. Look at what he says. Instead, be full of thanksgiving. That's what you should be doing, is giving thanks to God. So he says, look, it just doesn't fit. The kingdom of God, there's no place for that kind of like lifestyle and way of living. Now, again, here's the thing. Would you agree with me that in our day and age, for most people, like to kind of look at girls a certain way or guys a certain way, to make jokes about that, or to have some fun or whatever, is not looked upon as a horrible thing anymore, is it? Would you say? That most people would go, oh man, that's shocking, that's terrible. That's like every movie that's on. Go on Netflix later, I mean, that's what it is. And it's not just our movies, like PG-13. Filled with that stuff. In our lives sometimes, we're living in a world that goes, it's not bad. Boys will be boys. They're especially when it's like maybe teenagers or college kids especially. Wow, they're going to college. Well, that's just what they do. And it's like, Paul's going, well, not really. In fact, and this is what he's trying to say, is that if I want to soft pedal that, if I want to say that that's okay and excuse it away, he calls that deception and empty words. In fact, he goes, it's because of those things that the wrath of God comes upon those who don't have a clue, who could care less. He calls them sons of disobedience. Therefore, he says, don't become partners with them. Don't be like, hey, dude, where's the party? Don't be like, hey, we're going to go in this direction. He goes, when they want to go there, don't go there. Just say, no, I'm not going to take part. Now, he's not saying we don't love people. He's not saying we don't care about people, right, who are living in darkness or doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing, talking about things they shouldn't be talking about. We love them. And I don't know, like I remember, like when I came to faith, there were a whole lot of people like, hey man, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go to this place, we're gonna go to this club, and I'd be like, yeah, about that, and you have to have that rough conversation. And I'll be honest with you, people will think you're judging them, but let's be real clear. Like, I'm not judging that. I'm just judging. I don't want that. I don't want part of that. I know where that leads. I know what happens. When I spend a night in that club, I know, right, what's doing my soul. I know what happens, or I'm not ignorant of that. I'm going to choose what God wants for me. Now he says, don't, he goes, but he says, but at one time, and the reason why he's bringing it up is that at one time you were darkness. So I can't sit on my horse and go, man, what's wrong with you people? Notice he doesn't say at one time you got it wrong, at one time you had kind of cloudy thinking, at one time you needed some work. No, he's like, at one time look at this, darkness, that was your identity. Darkness is as darkness does, right? When you're in the dark, that you don't know the way. Now some of you, and I know, like, if you're watching this, maybe watching this later, you're like, but Pastor, I grew up in the church. Like I learned to walk singing Jesus loves me, this I know. Not walk, to talk. Right? But you were walking and talking and saying Jesus loves me, and you were, you like from an earliest age, like your earliest memories are in the church and loving Jesus. Now, for that person and for the person who is like had some like atrocious things happen in their life, and everyone in between, if you take Jesus out of the equation, darkness is where it's at. At one time, right? And the people he was writing to, a lot of them came out of difficult places. In fact, they were living in a time that was very similar to ours. Like if you were hanging in downtown Ephesus, and there was temple prostitution. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. And the overall thought on all of it was, hey, it's just that guy. He's just being a young dude, just getting his thing, right, going after it, and getting all of life that he can. Think of the craziest beer commercial you can, and he's like, they're just doing that. And he's going, no. You were darkness, but what are you now? Not we're trying to be, not we're working towards. He goes, you are light in the Lord. So walk as children of light. Now, this isn't the first time he said this. He said this a lot of times. In fact, this isn't the first time that someone hasn't sat down and pulled us in their office and talked to us. Jesus, in Matthew 24, verses 4 and 5, warned us, right? He said, see that no one leads you astray. A lot of people, many are going to come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. Paul, actually, same author in Colossians 2:8 says this, see to it no one takes you captive by philosophy, empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the word, and not according to Christ. He says it over and over again because it's an issue. We forget who we are, we forget what we are, and we need this warning because we're going to listen to those voices. I mean, what's easier? To say, oh yeah, just go with the flow. It's much harder to say, you know what? No, that's wrong. I'm not going to do it. It's bad for my soul, right? That's not who I am. So walk as children of light. So parent, be a parent to your kids as someone who is a child of light. Be a husband, be a wife who is a child of light, be a friend. And think about how would someone who is doing things in the light do them? If you're a kid and a student, if you're at school with your friends, how would someone who is the light of the world act? They're certainly not going to make fun of somebody. They're certainly not going to jump on social media and go, oh yeah, let me just tear this person apart and drive them to despair. I mean, which team is that? Is that Team Jesus or Team Satan? That's the Team Satan playbook right there. It's real simple. Destroy, hurt, tear down. It's all darkness, right? It's all things that are bad. Notice, all of those things Paul talked about earlier are things that hurt, and they hurt deep, right? Because that's the excuse we get. Yeah, it might be wrong in some people's eyes, but I'm not hurting anybody. I've heard that a million times. I've thought that a million times. I've excused my own behavior a million times. Well, I didn't hurt anybody. Yeah, not this time, right? But maybe it wasn't an external hurt, it was an internal hurt. No, we're light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. And the fruit of light, he says, is found in all good, in all that is good, all that is right, and all that is true. Is what am I going to say right now, responding to somebody? Is it about doing what's good, about doing what's right, about doing what's true, or is it about doing what I want to do? Notice how it combats sexual immorality, impurity, covetousness. Good, right, true. Which one? And I'm going to say it. I might say it a couple dozen more times in this sermon. We have a choice every day how we're going to live. Am I going to live out this identity as one of Jesus, one of the children of God because of Jesus, or something else? And what he says is, and how do we get that? How do we do these things? What's good, true, and right? Well, we do that by trying to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. And I'm telling you, we're going to wrestle with this sometimes. But I think it's just funny how we act like, well, I don't know what pleases the Lord. Well, you got a book. See this book I got right here? The whole book. The whole book, not a tiny little, not a couple page pamphlet, but we got a whole book that talks about what he loves. And that's us. I mean, look at how Jesus just did for people. Even when they came at him, the very people that he knew would put him on a cross, he loved them and cared about them and just kept that mission in front of him all the time. What is pleasing to the Lord when we love each other, when we help each other, when we speak the truth to each other, when we have these hard conversations sometimes. But there's also that other part, right? He says in verse 11, so we take no part in unfruitful works of darkness, rather we expose them. I find this really helpful because a lot of times, everything that's kind of the wrong things that he's talking about here, the bad things, if you want to call them that, they're all things that seem to be a good use of our time, and they seem to be, but they're not. He says, look, they are unfruitful. They're kind of a waste of your time. And they really are. They have no lasting value. In fact, they all cause untold problems, and there's just a whole list of bad things. So what should we do? We should expose them. Now, I got to admit to you, as I've looked at this passage over the years, I have a tendency, and you may do as well, of thinking of this as sort of like a daytime TV show, like Maury Povich or something, where we're going to expose what people are doing. Go on the internet, man. You'll find tons of people, their job. I'm going to expose what this person's doing, what that person's doing. He's going you got to shine the flashlight in your own heart first. And it connects with what he said earlier about don't listen as people give you empty words. You're no, instead of sugarcoating things, instead of explaining things away, your own behavior and your own attitude, and they go, it's just who I am. Do the tough work of saying, yeah, I'm going to call this what it is. It's shameful. I'm going to call it what it is. It's wickedness. I'm going to call it what it is. It's me putting up a poster and wearing a T-shirt that says Team Satan, right? When I do those things, that's kind of what I'm doing. I don't want to think that way because I'm just making a mistake. But he's saying, look, God's given us life. We're his children. He gave himself up for us. He loves us. He cares for us. He didn't just say that too. He actually went to a cross and suffered and died for us so that we wouldn't have to live in darkness, took us out of that darkness. So what he's saying here is, look, call it what it is. Call it useless. Call it worthless. Call it empty. Call it vain. Call it whatever it is. But expose it. Because when things are exposed by the light, they become visible. We can actually see what they are and what really what they're about. The selfishness, the anger, the bitterness, the things that are below the surface, right? It all becomes visible. And he says if anything becomes visible, it becomes light. Therefore, awake, O sleeper, arise from the dead, Christ will shine on you. So look carefully then how you walk. Not as unwise, but wise. See, God's already sat you down in his office and said, hey, who are you going to be? There's a wise road and there's a very unwise road. There's one that leads to life and there's one that leads to death, one that leads to darkness, one that leads to that's light. And he's put us on that path to life. So he says, make the best use of your time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish. Understand what the will of God is. Don't get drunk with wine, but that's debauchery, he said. But be filled with the Spirit. And here's the picture of life together for us, right? Addressing one another, psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart, and giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. Notice how that last section just seems kind of weird, doesn't it? I think it's weird because we're just like we often have lost our joy. Like today, I want you to get that joy back of knowing that you're a child of God, knowing that you're children of light. Paul says all of this so that not so that we would feel terrible and leave here and go, oh man, but to go, no, I'm a child of light. Even with all the dark things I do and even all the issues, like God would still call me this. Just like the gym teacher was trying to say, Fred, that's not you. That's not you. Like you have a family name. Live up to that. Right? You have a way that you live as part of that family. We have a way that we live as God's family. It's right here. What if we did that? What if we like just lived Scripture and sung it to each other? And there was a melody, there was a song in our hearts. Notice how like in every really cool movie, like when that real pivotal thing has happened, that's the kind of thing you see, right? The guy's singing, he's dancing around, right? He's met the girl of his dreams, or whatever it is. God wants that for us like 24/7. Thanking Him. And us loving each other, putting each other first, and caring about each other first. I'm going to leave you with one verse from Acts. Because I want to do for as many people in my life what that gym teacher did all those years ago. Is bring the truth. And Paul, the reason why he writes all these things is because of what Jesus said to him back in Acts. In Acts 26, he talks about his conversion. So we're going to look at 17 and 18 really quick, and then we're done. Do you remember that? Paul gets blinded on the road. Jesus comes to him, and he's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Jesus. I'm the one you're persecuting. And he says, you know what? Here's what you're going to be doing. He said, you are going to be my servant. You are going to be a witness to the things which you have seen me and to those in which I will appear to you, delivering you, listen to this, from your people and from the Gentiles to whom I am sending you. He wants to send them to those people to open their eyes, that they may turn from darkness to light, and that they might turn from the power of Satan to the power of God, that they might receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. If you're looking to find out like with your life's purposes, it's this. I mean, to me, there's no greater thing when somebody's eyes open and they see. Right, that they see. They see the darkness for what it is, but they see this light of God. They see Satan for who he is. And they receive this forgiveness, and they know that they have a place. What an amazing, amazing, amazing gift that is. And I pray that we all see that as our goal, as our job, really, if you will. In whatever path we find ourselves in, that we would sit down with the people in our lives and really pray that people would sit down with us when we need to hear it. Show us the truth of what Jesus has done and how that has set us free.